Welcome to We Question and Learn. We're celebrating our 19th year here now on WQLN Public Media, WQLN NPR in Erie, Pennsylvania. Always special guests, and today, Karen Bilowith, President and CEO of the Erie Community Foundation. Welcome to the program today.
Thank you.
Good to hear you.
Great to hear you.
Oh, thank you. Could you help some folks out? We do have folks that listen from just about anywhere right now. On the different podcast venues that we place the program on. Could you just give us a short overview of the Erie Community Foundation?
I sure will. The Erie Community Foundation we serve Erie County in Western Pennsylvania, and we basically are here to help improve the quality of life throughout our region. And we do that in partnership with donors. So we're almost like a charitable matchmaker. We match donors with the great community organizations that they're interested in and help improve the quality of life throughout the region. Excellent.
And you have been there since October of 2021, not that long ago.
Just under a year.
Yes, under a year. I'm sure it's been an incredible learning experience. In such a short time, you seem to have grabbed the reins really well. You're doing an admirable job from my point of view. What was your biggest challenge, if I could ask, coming fresh into Erie, Pennsylvania?
Well, I'll start out with the easy part, and that was that Erie is a very generous community. So we have what I think are the secret ingredients for a successful community foundation. We have people who care about their community, and we have nonprofits that are doing great work. So like I said, we're able to match donors with the types of things that they're interested in supporting, and that makes us successful. I would say that the biggest challenge was just really learning the networks within our community. And people have lived here for a very long time in some cases. So trying to just get to know the landscape and the environment. But I have to say that people in Erie made that much easier.
Oh, we're great people here, as you now know. But you manage a foundation that's just about, well, now it's just a bit short of what this is, $218 million in Idaho, the Idaho Community Foundation. That was a statewide public charitable foundation. That was your last job. Do I have that right?
You do. I was at the Idaho Community Foundation for about 6 years. And like Erie Community Foundation, we had the same purpose. However, our place was the whole state of Idaho. So if you ask me what the challenge is there, it was trying to cover such a large geographic region.
And they didn't give you an airplane to cover the territory, I'm sure.
They did not.
That would have been somewhat helpful, I guess, in some of the outlying areas up there. But you and I have something in common. We're native New York staters, but you spent time in the greater capital region in Albany. So that was a different organization, I believe.
That was first at a United Way organization, but then at the Community Foundation there as well. Okay. And yes, I found the similarity. There are more similarities between that region and Erie than there are between Erie and Idaho, for sure.
Well, I can support that point of view, having spent a lot of time there as well. We welcome you to the program. Coming up from the date of this broadcast in just a couple of days is Erie Gives Day, which for folks to mark on their calendar, and I'm sure many have already, is August 9th. And this is a big deal. Karen, this is what, the 15th or 16th Erie Gives Day? Maybe I have the number.
12th.
Okay, I added a few there. Maybe I was
you did.
trying to relieve some of the stress. But anyways, this is a big deal. Maybe, if you could, outline how Erie Gives Day works.
So Erie Gives Day is, as you said, coming up on August 9th, and it is our 12th annual Erie Gives event. And it is a day to encourage people all across Erie, Pennsylvania, and really the world to contribute to the organizations in Erie that make this such a great place to live. So we facilitate this annual day of giving really so that every person can be a philanthropist, whether they give $5 by purchasing an acorn at Country Fair, $25 online, or even some of our donors give up to $50,000. So we encourage giving by making it easy, and also by matching gifts from the donors with our prorated match pool.
Now that I have my calendar glued in my head properly, this started in 2011 that the Erie Community Foundation introduced a giving day to this community. So you've had a lot of practice, and every year, I shouldn't say practice, you've had a lot of successful years. And each year it seems the total goes up a little bit more. How did things work out last year relative to the pandemic and everything?
Last year, while I wasn't here, I think everybody who were surprised that we raised over $7 million, especially during the pandemic year. And as you said, each year that we've done this over the past 11 years, we have had greater success year over year. We're hoping to continue that trend this year.
Very good. So a little unnerved maybe. This is your first one, but I have to say, as of the date we're recording, I'm sure you're feverishly preparing. What does it take to organize what we call in public broadcasting a one-day pledge drive? How much stress is involved?
Well, as you know,
yes.
probably from seeing it happen, it is a lot of work behind the scenes. Our staff here have been gearing up for months. First, we encourage other corporations and businesses to join us in supporting the prorated match pool. And we're really excited that this year we have our largest match pool ever, $470,000. And then we have to make sure that all of the technical aspects are in place so that the systems are going to work. We encourage all of the nonprofit organizations to register to be a recipient, and then we get out there and spread the word, which is what we're doing today. But our team here does a lot of work within the community so that people are aware of this opportunity.
I think the nonprofits enjoyed this. This is an unusual way to fundraise. I guess these kinds of things have been around since maybe 2000 or later. There was one in Pittsburgh, one in Chicago. I believe you sent me a note saying it was modeled after those two. So you weren't the first one to try this, but as you are doing this, it seems to be quite successful.
It is a successful model, and you're right. There are giving days throughout the country now, and there are a couple of really important. You asked if the nonprofits enjoy it or appreciate it, and I would answer yes. This is really an opportunity for nonprofits to do a couple of things. Number one, the resources that are raised by the nonprofits through Erie Gives go to the nonprofits as unrestricted gifts. So that's really important. It helps them keep the lights on and support their staff and all of the good programming they do. And that's different than writing a grant or, getting money for a specific program. So it's really important to the nonprofits. The other thing it does is introduces individual donors to nonprofits. Mm-hmm. So donors who start out as a giver for Erie Gives may become a long-term donor of the organization. And as you know, that's really important. Individuals make up between 70 and 80% of gifts to individual nonprofits. So really important resource for our nonprofit organizations.
In the last few years, or at least your almost full last year here in Erie, have you witnessed any stress because of the COVID? I'm sure there is, but from your perspective, how do you feel this is going?
Well, a couple of things are happening. One is we've definitely seen nonprofit organizations begin to engage again in person with events and other types of opportunities to engage donors. And we know that's really important to ongoing support. So that's the good news. We've also seen through our grant making, especially in our Helping Today grants program, that the applications are finally starting to talk about returning to programming, more normal programming. So it's not just COVID response at this point. And that's also we see that as very positive as well. So the nonprofits are back to engaging in their mission related work. Although at the same time, they do, especially the nonprofits that are serving direct services to people around health and human services, they are still seeing an increase in demand for their services.
Yeah. And I've talked to several of them, and they're still maintaining a good degree of caution. It may seem like everything's wide open since you can wander in and out of restaurants on occasion, but there is some interesting numbers still creeping through. And if someone's underserved or ill or has some great need relative to mental or physical health, there seems to be a good deal of caution. The neat thing about the Erie Gives Day is that this is all internet and phone based. Am I right?
You are. People can give on the Erie Gives website. through making a credit card contribution. They can download a form to fill out and then drop a check off or drop it in the mail or call in. So it is a virtual way of giving, which does make it easier, especially during this pandemic time.
One day, not incessant people calling you all the time and asking you to help. You do it in one good, honest, forthright, from the heart gift. Now, how does this work as the money flows to the Erie Community Foundation? What's the structure? I.e., it gets to you, and then what happens?
Well, even before it gets to us, depending on how a donor chooses to contribute, they can go online and pick the charities that they would like to support. Mm-hmm. We also have a special edition in the Erie Times News on Sunday, July 31st that has the nonprofits listed. Or if they call and say they're interested in giving to support animals, then the people who answer the phone, can look up the different organizations. So the choices are very easy to make. And then once the money comes in, we track it across all of those different organizations. And by the end of the day, we have our rough total. It takes us probably a week or two to actually make sure all of the checks are entered. And then we make our final announcement. But once we have all the dollars in, we start sending out the checks to the nonprofits. So it's a very efficient process. Even though, as I said before, it's a massive undertaking, it still happens relatively quickly, and the nonprofits will have the money in their checking accounts fairly quickly.
Over the years here, it's amazing to me how you've managed this. It's an incredible process. Now, this is all done right at the foundation?
It is. We have all of our staff, all hands on deck that day. Yeah. We have our board members volunteering, and then we even get some of our corporate donors send staff over. So it's an effort that engages not only all of the nonprofits across our community, but really so many donors. I think we had 11,000 different donors last year.
That's incredible to process that in one day, at least to plant the seeds of those donations in one day. That's just absolutely incredible. Doing anything new this year? Say some incentives or something like that?
We did. We have a few new things. Last year was the first year that we did a partnership with Country Fair where they sold acorns leading up to the Erie Gives Day for $1 or $5. So I'm sure you've seen that before. Somebody can buy an acorn. But then this year we also wanted to provide an opportunity for some of the smaller businesses to be able to participate. Mm-hmm. So we have, on every hour, we have an incentive. And depending on what it is, it may be the most donors or different metrics that we were able to track. A nonprofit will receive an additional bonus that hour, and those are sponsored by some of the small businesses across town.
Maybe some folks don't realize it, but the Erie Community Foundation in Erie, Pennsylvania, has affiliates not too far from here, at least 3 that I can think of off the top of my head. Are they able to participate this year?
Right. Our affiliates in Corey, Northeast, and Union City all participate, and it works the same way. Donors can go on to Erie Gives and contribute to nonprofits in those communities. Those affiliate community foundations also participate in contributing to the match pool, and then those nonprofits are eligible to receive the prorated match as well.
In the effort of full disclosure, I used to sit on the nonprofit partnership board. How does that, or that organization, how does that relate to you, the Erie Community Foundation, and Erie Gives Day?
Well, the nonprofit partnership was started by the Erie Community Foundation, and now it's its own entity. However, we share space on our campus, so they are our neighbor. And the way that they relate to us is really, this is just, Erie Gives us another way that the community foundation supports the nonprofit community. But the nonprofit partnership, as you probably know from serving on their board, throughout the year, they provide education, training, and other resources for our nonprofits. And they help us with the staffing of Erie Gives. They help us market the program to all of their nonprofit members. And also we do some training on how to participate and be successful as an Erie Gives nonprofit. So we do some training specifically geared toward this program.
That's a good outline. Thank you for that. You broke a lot of records doing this, even last year. It was outstanding, better than outstanding. I won't ask you to list all the dollars involved, but I think you distributed, like you said, over $7 million. That in itself is a feat.
That's amazing. I'm still surprised.
Yeah.
When I read that number, in Idaho, we had Idaho Gives Day, and that was for the whole state. And the last year I was there, we raised just shy of $4 million. So it's pretty telling about the generosity of our community.
Let's talk a little bit for a couple of minutes about the Erie Community Foundation itself, just to give people who are listening from out of town a little better feel. You serve how many organizations in this community?
Through Erie Gives, we serve 438 nonprofits participated last year. But really, we serve the entire nonprofit community through our grant-making program. So annually, we distribute over $20 million in grants to nonprofit organizations. And that happens in a couple of different ways. We have competitive grants where the nonprofits can apply based on specific criteria. And we also have a network of donors that we work with who set up funds at the community foundation, either to benefit specific nonprofits that they name or to send out distributions to every year based on our advice or what they recommend to us. So there are many different ways that nonprofits can receive funding from the community foundation.
I think of the money involved. That is the money at the Erie Community Foundation as a giant battery. And that battery's got to be, what, over 250 million, I'm guessing?
370 million at the end of last year.
Okay, thank you for steering me in a much better direction. That's incredible, because I remember when it was just over 100 million, and that was a challenge at times. So this has been a massive increment over the last, say, decade or half a decade, and certainly a good deal of responsibility. With that, can you talk about your board of trustees, how they help and how they offer guidance, and what's your thought about the board?
We have an amazing board of trustees, and they help us in a lot of different ways. They provide the fiduciary oversight for our $370 million. So that means we have board members with expertise in finance, investment, and they really act as a steward of those charitable dollars. Donors contribute those dollars to benefit the community, and our board is responsible for ensuring that happens. So they have a lot of responsibility, but I think they also really enjoy it. So we have board members who have legal and, as I said, financial expertise, but then it's really important as a community foundation that we also have board members that are representative of the community that we serve. So we have a board member from Gannon University. We have board members who work in other aspects of the community, and we try to think about diversity of all different types on our board as well.
That's fabulous, and they're hardworking as well. This is not a passive board or what I call a vanity board. This is a hardworking board, from what I've heard and from what you're telling me now.
It's true. They actually help us review all of the grant applications that come across our desk. We have an excellent team of staff here that meet with nonprofits and really know the community well, but the board reviews all of their recommendations, and also they're great ambassadors for us in the community.
That's fabulous. Now, nothing works without the staff. So how many folks do you have in your building?
We have 15 staff members, and over the summer we have 3 interns as well.
And I'm sure they work diligently during Erie Gives Day. There's a lot of running around, and we want to give a note of thanks to them. I'm sure you will, for all the hard work they're doing on this project, but also everyday work.
Absolutely.
You have partnerships. First of all, there are the different community foundations that are out and about the area, and I'm thinking Corey, Findlay Lake, Northeast, Union City. How do you integrate with those community foundations in those areas?
So each of those community foundations, they work in their local communities in very much the same way that we work in our community. So they work with donors from the community and then also with community initiatives and nonprofits. So they do grant making like we do, and the way that we work with them is we actually help support their efforts both in terms of donor development and their grant making. So our staff here provides staff support, and then we provide administration for their back office and
okay.
also for investing their charitable funds as well.
I remember your predecessor, Mike Batchelor, would always mention the Elijah Mack Community Bequest Society. That's still active, obviously.
It is. We are excited because it's still growing.
Yes. Yeah.
So the Mack Society are those people, those individuals who have made a commitment to support the Community Foundation and then therefore the community through their estate. And we have 200 people in our Mack Society. We will be announcing later this year a very large gift that came through that we expect to come in by the end of the year.
That's fabulous. And then there's the Susan Hurt Hagen Center for Transformational Philanthropy. Your building, I believe, is made possible by that or related to that?
Yes. So our building is the home of the Susan Hurt Hagen Fund for Transformational Philanthropy. And that is a fund that supports our large community investments that we make in partnership with other anchor institutions in the community. So, for example, we gave a grant last year to support the expansion of the Children's Museum. That was a $3 million grant. We also helped start the community college and the McGee Women's Research Institute. So those are large grants that we see as transformational to our entire community, as opposed to just supporting one organization or one program.
That's fabulous. That's somewhat unique from what I understand and extremely beneficial to our community. You also have the Erie Women's Fund. How does that work?
We do. We have several of what we call affinity funds. So these are collective giving funds that are set up to support specific either populations or communities. So the Erie Women's Fund, the LGBT funds, Young Erie Philanthropists, and here Erie's Youth are examples of that. And each of these come together. The Erie Women's Fund, for example, is a group of women who come together to support our community. They just announced their grant for this year last week, which went to the Mercy Center for Women.
I think you've covered just about every corner of the building, if not anything else in the community. But that's not to say a donor cannot make their own choice. And you help that donor manage their money or help them amplify the value of that money. Am I close?
You are right on target, yes. So we help donors in a couple of different ways. As I said, through our Mack Society, if a donor is interested in establishing a fund through their estate, it can be directed to support the organizations that they have supported, while they were living. They can name the funds that they want or the organizations that they want to support, or they could say, we want to support youth issues and leave it up to the discretion of our board of directors to annually decide, what is the best use of those funds. So our obligation to our donors is that we always protect their intent, and we do that by supporting the issues and organizations that they have cared about. We also have a commitment to be a good steward of those funds that they contribute to us, and that's when I talk about the board and their, how the financial expertise is really helpful. However, if a donor, when donors are living, we have many donors who set up funds here, and they either can support specific issues or organizations, or they can work with our staff very much in the same way and say, this year, I'd really like to support COVID relief. Can you help me identify some organizations in the community that are in need of support? So we do a lot of, as I said earlier, charitable matchmaking throughout the year.
In the last couple of minutes here, let's go back to Erie Gives Day. Let's do a quick outline. They can give online at eriegives.org.
Correct.
Great. They can call you. Can they call you on it? Okay. You get past that number on. That might be helpful. The day of giving.
The phone number is 814
Yes.
454-0843.
Very good. And then the other promotions that you have, it should be a pretty busy day. You'll have the whole staff, the board, and some extra volunteers. And we hope that everybody takes a couple of minutes. I'm sure it doesn't even take that long to give you a call at the number you just gave and helps something that's just become a fantastic tradition and an easy way to give and to support the community in Northwest Pennsylvania, Erie Gives Day and the Erie Community Foundation. Any other thoughts? Are you thinking already about next year? Are you thinking about programs for 2022? And I'm sure you are, 2022 and 2023. You mentioned a grant is coming. Is there anything else that seems to be on the horizon you'd like to talk about?
Well, we have been working with other institutions in Erie, and last week launched what we're calling Erie's Inclusive Growth, which is a framework for action. It's an investment playbook that can help our community leverage state and federal funding that is coming through pandemic recovery efforts, but is really intended to help our community work together to leverage public, private, and philanthropic funds all toward the same goals.
And you're also there to just sit and talk with someone who may have an idea of how they'd like to move forward with their estate or how they'd like to move forward with their philanthropic philosophies in Northwest Pennsylvania. I'm sure you're more than willing to speak with anyone on those topics.
Absolutely. Our staff here is always happy to, that's a really good point. We sometimes sit down with a donor who comes in with one idea and then through conversation and some thoughtful consideration leaves with, either a more specific idea on a scholarship or program they might want to support, or may even change their mind. So I always am amazed at how knowledgeable our staff is about the needs in the community and how we can help communicate those to our donors and the broader community.
The Erie Community Foundation has been a great value for the past 70 years. It's great to have a community, especially of our size, relative to the rest of the world, to have something this effective and this large right here in Erie, Pennsylvania.
It's true.
Oh, and I'm sure everyone listening is thinking the same. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day. This is going to be an even busier day a couple days from now. I'm sure you won't be there at 10 o'clock in the morning. You'll be there much earlier, setting up the phones and making sure all the computers and all the data is working so that this will be another successful Erie Gives Day. Karen Bilowith, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to sit and chat with me. It's been a real pleasure.
Well, thank you so much for helping us spread the word about Erie Gives.
Welcome to We Question and Learn. This is Tom Pysz, host of the program. We're going on our 19th year, talking with important people in the community about services, accomplishments, organizations, just the community in general. Today, we have a special topic. We're going to talk about the Children's Advocacy Center. And with me on the line is Michael Gaines, the Executive Director. Greetings.
Hello, Tom.
We're glad that you can take this half hour and spend the time with us. The official name of the organization is the Bradley H. Foulk Children's Advocacy Center of Erie County, Inc. I hope I have that right.
You do.
And you folks are up on West 38th Street. But I'm hoping that we could take a few minutes and outline what I consider probably one of the most important topics in our community, and that's how we help protect our children. How long have you been there?
I've been the director here since 2010, so 12 years plus now. Okay,
time flies. Very serious job indeed. As the executive director, what are your duties specifically?
Well, I'm kind of the jack of all trades of the organization. If there's a job that needs done that doesn't take the expertise of my specially trained staff, then that's my job. So
that's good.
I do everything from making public statements like we're doing right now to fundraising, to bookkeeping, to sometimes shoveling the snow or sweeping up the floor, whatever needs to happen.
Duties as assigned, which is the last requirement on your job description, but I'm sure all those tasks are important. But the most important thing is helping children. And if we could, let's talk about child abuse as a problem in our county in Northwest Pennsylvania, that is Erie County. Can you frame where we are today in 2022?
Well, I certainly will try to give you a thumbnail sketch. Mm-hmm. Erie County, as of 2020, which is the last time we have completed statistics available, had just under 59,000 children under the age of 18. And over the last several years, there have been reports of a possible child abuse made to the county, ranging anywhere from 1,000 to 1,300 reports each year. Works out to being somewhere around 17 children out of every 1,000 are reported as possibly being abused. That's, to me, way too many.
So help me out with the logistics. A phone call will come in. Typically, where does a call like that go? It's got to be complicated because the calls may come from different people, different areas, different relationships. Could you help me out here and maybe frame some circumstances as to how this happens?
Sure. Whenever anyone has a concern for the well-being of a child, the easiest way for them to make a report is there's a couple that are very easy. One is if the child is in immediate danger, and that's a very specific situation. If a child is ever in immediate danger, then 911 is the appropriate call because we want the law enforcement to respond to make sure the child is safe as quickly as possible. Most child abuse reports are not those type of urgent situations. More likely, it's somebody who knows the child and has seen something, or the child has said something to them of something that has happened in the recent or even somewhat distant past, depending. Those reports, the state has a hotline number which can be accessed. It's 1-800-932-0313, or a website which is keepkidssafe.pa.gov. Either of those ways, a person who is required to report possible child abuse or a member of the general public could make a report. That would go to eventually back to the county, both in terms of the Child Protective Services folks at the Office of Children and Youth, and also to the appropriate law enforcement agency of whatever jurisdiction the person calls from.
It sounds a bit complicated. It's what provokes, as you mentioned, different scenarios provoke the call. It could be something immediate that someone, would that be a family member typically more than anyone else?
Most of the time, calls come either from a family member or from somebody who has close contact with the child, perhaps a teacher, a coach, a youth ministry person, somebody involved in athletics, activities that the child might be involved in. And physical abuse oftentimes gets reported because people see something. They see a bruise, they see an injury. Maybe somebody from the family has taken the child to the hospital and, the emergency room, and the injuries there, the medical people say look like they aren't accidental or possibly aren't. So those type of responses for that. If it's somebody with sexual abuse issues, that usually means the child has to have disclosed to somebody that someone was bothering them.
And that's where things get complicated. And you have, I believe, procedures, a schedule that you have to follow to ascertain what's happened.
Well, we are a nonprofit agency who works closely with all the people who are on the both investigative and the victim services helping side of things. We're a neutral body, and what we do for the investigative side is if law enforcement or the Office of Children and Youth or the district attorney's office thinks the child may have been abused, they can send that child and their caregivers to us for what we call a forensic interview. We have a well-trained, specially trained person who knows how to speak with children on the developmentally appropriate level. You talk to a 3-year-old differently than you talk to a 7-year-old, differently than you talk to a 13-year-old, differently than you talk to a 17-year-old. But to try to get the child to tell whatever it is they have to tell, without bias, without being led one way or the other. We are a neutral fact-finding entity, and that interview with the forensic interviewer is recorded so that those doing the investigation can access that information without having to re-interview the child, because every time the child would have to go through the story, it would be re-traumatizing. And one of the reasons why Brad Foulk and the committee that worked with him 20-some years ago to bring the CAC model to Erie County did that was they thought the system was tough on the children, and it was time to get something that would not traumatize them in the process of trying to help them.
So back in the old days, this would happen possibly at a police station or an authority's office of some sort. Today in the 21st... I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, you're right. A police station, a hospital emergency room with all the hustle and bustle and busyness around there, or somebody's office. And oftentimes, in the old days, several people had to talk to the child separately. I mean, somebody from the county office of children and youth would talk to them, a detective, probably a patrolman first. It would be the child would have to go through the account time and time again. And that's not healthy. So it was decided that's what they put together a task force in the late 1990s and looked at all the models that were out there. And this particular model was the one that they chose. And indeed, it's the most used model across the United States. There's over 800 child advocacy centers in the United States.
Well, give us a visualization. It's not an office, or is it an office? Is it like a clinic, the interview for the child? Structurally, how does this look?
Yeah, we have a building that once upon a time it was built, I think, originally as a doctor's office, but we've remodeled it. The child and their non-offending family members come in to a very welcoming lobby. There are comfortable seating. There are toys and things for children to be amused by while they wait, etc. Obviously, a television, and actually, a television is usually set to WQLN, I might note.
Thank you. Children's programming. Good, very
that's
good.
That's right. And they come, and we have a person called our family care coordinator who meets with them and gets the basic demographic information and finds out any concerns that the family has at that point. And then the forensic interviewer comes and introduces themselves and invites the child back to the interview room. The interview room is just basically a room with a couch and a chair, and we point out to the child, here's the camera and here's the microphone, and there are people in another room who are observing this live, because we don't know. This child may have been, if they were being abused, could have been photographed being abused. And so we don't want to, we tell them up front what we're doing, so there's not anything that they feel like they're being tricked or anything. We don't want that. But then the interviewer speaks with them and asks open-ended questions as they're trained to ask according to the child's age and ability, and the child tells their story. And then when they're done, the child goes back out to the lobby. In the meantime, that family care coordinator has been talking to their parents or guardians, the people who brought the child, about the services that are available. And those are a number of things in our community. There's medical services, We have what's called the Care Clinic, which is from Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh. It operates down in the Women's Hospital down at Hammett. They're specially trained to do these medical exams. We have mental health counselors who are specially trained to work with children who have suffered the trauma of abuse. We have, of course, our Crime Victim Center here in Erie County. We count on them to do so many victim services for the child and the family, and also in the process prepare them if there's going to be a trial, so they're not afraid when they get to the courtroom, etc. So we try to connect the child and the family to all these various helping agencies to make sure that they're supported and that the needs that they have are met for them to be healthy and not have lasting mental or physical damage if indeed they were abused. Now, some children come in and they tell their story and there was no abuse, and that's a wonderful thing. We're happy when a child wasn't abused. Sometimes there was abuse, and then the authorities take the appropriate action to go try to locate the abuser while we try to make sure the child gets the help that they need.
How many people are on your team at your office?
We're actually a very small team. In addition to myself, We have our forensic interviewer, our family care coordinator, and one other person who works with case management things. So it's only 4 full-time people.
Mm-hmm.
We have a part-time person who helps us with development because we have some funding to exist, and that helps with that. And we have another person who's part-time who works on prevention programs because we would love to reduce the number of cases of child abuse. And the way to do that, of course, is by educating the community.
That was one of my questions. How is all this funded? How is it taken care of?
Well, there's a mix of funding, actually. We get some money that comes from the state through the County Office of Children and Youth to do the services we do. It doesn't cover all of them, but it's some.
Mm-hmm.
We write for grants. We certainly are always looking for grants, and we always try to find grant money. And then we do fundraising events. We have, up until COVID, we had an annual dinner. We're hoping to bring that back next year.
Mm-hmm.
It's been on hiatus since COVID hit. We've had also an annual golf outing, and we were able to have that this year, which was a good thing to see it back. So, and then we have other smaller fundraising things as they come along. So we just try to keep doing what we can to, because all services are always provided to the family, to the child and the family, free of charge.
Mm-hmm. The legal community, I'm sure they appreciate what you do. How do you interface with the lawyer or lawyers? How does this work? Or do you?
We don't directly.
Okay.
I mean, the when it gets into the legal system, you know, if the police file charges, then it's the district attorney's office that prosecutes, and you know, the defense and the prosecution do their thing in the court. The most that we would have is our forensic interviewer might be called to testify to the fact that the child had an interview, and this is what usually just affirming the fact that what the child came in and disclosed or didn't disclose.
Michael T. Gaines, Executive Director, as you work diligently at your process there, do you have other organizations, say statewide or nationally, that you belong to or can gain some education from or some support from?
We do. First of all, we are a accredited Child Advocacy Center, and the accrediting body is a group called National Children's Alliance. They're headquartered in Washington, D.C., and they are funded by the U.S. Department of Justice. And it's their job to make sure that the various child advocacy centers, and I earlier mentioned there are 800 of them across the country, are doing things according to best practice, according to the proper standards that we have 10 standards of accreditation that we are required to meet and maintain. From how we have a child-friendly location for the child to come, to the way in which we conduct interviews, to the type of therapies we refer people to that have to be evidence-based, the quality and training of the medical people we refer people to who have to have special training in child abuse. All those are in that standards, and we have to meet those from National Children's Alliance. And then the federal government also has what's called regional CACs, Child Advocacy Centers. There's 4 of them. That they don't see children and families. What they do is provide training and technical assistance to the local community CACs. So there are 4 of those across the country that specialize in certain areas of those standards. So we need training. We need a new person on staff, and they need to be brought up to speed. We can send them to training sponsored by those people. And then also in the state of Pennsylvania, there is a chapter we have 31 current child advocacy centers accredited across the state of Pennsylvania, and we form together this member organization so that we can together get the proper training and assistance that we couldn't do individually by pooling our expertise and our resources. We can help get what we need for all of our various communities. There are 67 counties in the state of Pennsylvania, and as I say, there are about 31 child advocacy centers right now, a few others in development. some counties are too small to have their own, and the neighboring county provides services. But so there is this network that helps and makes sure also that we're doing things properly.
Absolutely. Is there a certain kind of child that's more likely to be a victim of abuse, and how would you be able to tell?
That's an excellent question, because people tend to presume that there are certain types and certain tells, and there really aren't. Any child could be a victim of abuse. Any child, you just don't know. Depends on what situation they may happen to find themselves in. It may depend on, again, there's a difference between physical abuse. Oftentimes we see physical abuse increasing in families when stressors increase. So, for example, when people got shut in at the pandemic, people, it kind of got a little more tense, and we saw some more severe physical abuse injuries. Once actually some of the funding money that came along to help people who were not able to work came in, and that lowered the stress level, we saw some of those injuries numbers decrease. The same thing happened back when the housing bubble happened in 2008, when the thing blew up, the housing bubble and the economy got jarred. Stresses went up. We saw the physical abuse injuries increase. Particularly younger children are most susceptible to those. Any child could be a victim of physical abuse, but more often than not, it's the little ones who, things are going on and people are upset and they're tense, and the child starts whining, and it's so easy to respond with more force than somebody intends, and next thing you know, they've injured the child. The sexual abuse, on the other hand, that is a whole different story, because it doesn't have any connection to that type of external factor. But we see at the CAC actually more sexual abuse cases, because oftentimes physical abuse cases, there's physical evidence, and they don't need an interview from the child to proceed with keeping the child safe or going after the perpetrator. But for sexual abuse, oftentimes that's simply the word of the child, and the investigators need that child's story, and we see them. So there is no socioeconomic factor. There is no neighborhood. There is no certain part of the community. Anyone, anywhere, could be a victim of sexual abuse. We've seen it in the poorest parts of the county. We've seen it in the wealthiest parts of the county. We've seen professional people who were the abusers, and we've seen people who were, nearly homeless who were the abusers. There's just no tell there. What is consistent, though, and if you go into the national statistics on this across the country, we see that most abusers are known to the child, and particularly with sexual abuse, most of it happens within the family. Maybe it's an uncle, a cousin, an aunt, a niece, a step-parent, somebody's boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever it is, it's somebody in the family group that is most of the time, the majority of cases, the abuser. I always think back when I was a child, my parents, gave me that very important lecture of, don't talk to strangers, don't take candy from somebody you don't know, don't get in a car with somebody you don't know. All those very important things, but actually, that type of abuse on a child accounts for less than 10% of the total. It does happen. We hear cases of children, somebody trying to lure a child from on their way to school into a car or something. We hear those every now and again in the news, but they aren't that common. It's much more likely to be someone the child knows and trusts.
And that could be from any facet of their life, and it could be in any socioeconomic environment.
Absolutely.
That's sort of scary when you think about it, because maybe
thankfully most people don't.
No.
Most people aren't abusers, thank goodness, because it is scary. I mean, there's no. I know of nothing that you could target a group, and this would be then you would reduce the incidences of child sexual abuse by this particular demographic or this particular socioeconomic. None of that works. It's just we just have to make sure our children are safe. And we who have children or grandchildren, children that we love, we just need to keep our eyes open and our ears open and make sure that we don't put children in awkward or situations where someone could take advantage of them.
Maybe this is an obvious question, but in your research, drugs, alcohol, the mental health of a parent or individual near a child, is that a big percentage?
Yes. There, especially some of those things are more factors for physical abuse. Some of them are more factors in sexual abuse. But yes, obviously, if there's some other type of addiction or dysfunction in a family, it opens the door for the possibility of something else, or somebody not being as caring or as vigilant as necessary. By the way, I should say the largest type of abuse that happens out of everything is neglect. Children who aren't either physically neglected or they're medically neglected. They aren't being taken for their proper medical care, dental care. They aren't. No one's seeing that they go to school. All those sort of things are part of neglect, and if it gets to a certain level, that becomes child abuse. Obviously, lower levels of that, there are still things like truancy and things, but higher levels of that become child abuse. And that perhaps is the largest unreported type of abuse that happens, according to, again, all the experts who study these things. And we don't see very many neglect cases at the Children's Advocacy Center. That is not something we see a lot of. We do see some.
What are your suggestions relative to helping our community safe? Let's be specific. How can we help keep our children safe?
Well, I think that there are several important things that we can do to help keep children safe. One is, first of all of us need to keep our eyes open, and if we see something that seems amiss, to report it so that somebody can look into it. You know, the old line of if you see something, say something is certainly true in this area. And everyone, we all know children, and we all, have children in our lives, again, whether they're family members or children of friends or relatives, that we could keep an eye on and just make sure that they seem okay. And if we see and notice a significant change in a child who was very outgoing and gregarious suddenly becomes quiet and sullen, or a child who was shy suddenly starts exhibiting really bizarre behavior or something, any real stark change of behavior, we should take that as a warning. Again, maybe it's not abuse, but there's something going on in the life of that child that it would be helpful if somebody knew about it. Because the authorities who deal with the child abuse also can deal with other things, family supports and family things that can help families know how to better parent and better take care of their children. Those are some of the broad areas for the community. Also, though, I think we have a prevention program that we have just brought to town from the American Psychological Association on parenting, and it's for parents of children age 10 or under. And it's designed to help build positive parental activity and to reduce the tendency toward violence or towards losing temper or things like that. We are just starting to roll it out, and it's called the ACT Raising Safe Kids program. And we're working with some of the local agencies and schools to hopefully be able to make this available to parents. And we think that if we can get enough people who get trained in these sort of things, it will help improve their parenting and help improve family life, and that should then have that effect of reducing the likelihood of particularly physical abuse.
Let's take the last minute here and let people know how they can find out more information, how to find out more about you and your organization. Michael Gaines, how can people best find you? What's your website, etc.?
In order to get information about us, our website is a good place to start, and we are www.cacerie.org. That's cacerie.org. And that has a lot of information. It has some educational information as well as how to report child abuse and things, and an explanation of what we do, and all those sort of things on it. We also have a Facebook page that, honestly, I have to say we're not really good at social media because we're such a small staff, but we're trying to get better at it. So we hope to put more stuff out on our Facebook page. And
call for a volunteer. Here we go.
Always somebody who knows what they're doing besides this gray-haired executive director who's kind of out of my league.
And is there a number they call, or would you prefer they use the website?
If they wish to call us, our number is 814-451-0202. And we're here Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. I do want to say, though, you can't call to have us interview your child. That has to come through the authorities.
Right. Yeah. I was going to make that point before you dropped off the air, because you're not a face front organization. Of course, everything has to go through the authorities, the legal system, and the medical system, so to speak. You're an adjunct and a professional organization that provides immense help, but you're not the face front, the preventative organization, so to speak, on the front line.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. If people want like our prevention program, we can certainly contact us directly for that. But if they have a concern about the safety or well-being of a child,
right,
it's the authorities they need to talk to.
Okay. Do you ever head out and do presentations to groups?
I'm always happy to be invited to a group and to talk about what we do, and we can do a general talk about child abuse. I can also help people who are required to be mandated reporters to get some, put some real life stories into that training that they've had. We do training with a number of groups that way. We're always happy to. I just most recently was both invited to Mercyhurst University and Gannon University to speak to some of the students who were training for various medical careers, because obviously they will see young people and have the opportunity to witness and recognize the need for some intervention. Michael
Gaines, Executive Director of the Children's Advocacy Center. Now, let's do it correctly, the Bradley H. Foulk Children's Advocacy Center of Erie County. And thank you so much for all this good information. We appreciate it.
Tom, thank you so much for inviting me to come on the show. It's my delight to be able to speak with you and to be on WQLN. We're very grateful to have this resource in the community, and I'm happy to have a part of it.